pranešimas visiems stalo žaidimų entuziastams. Į Lituanikoną atvyko Modiphius Entertainment įkūrėjas Rita Birch, praskleisantis žaidimų leidybos industrijos paslapties šydą. Kviečiame pasiklausyti. Paskaita vyks anglų kalba.
Technical glitch. Let's start with a few questions for you guys. So who here is a gamer? So who here plays role-playing games? What about war games, miniature games? Bit of both. Card games? Board games? Football? I'm not a football fan, my wife is. I'll start with a little bit of story. Does everyone know who Modiphius is? Okay, a little bit of story. We're a big British-based tabletop publishing company. We started 13 years ago, and interesting background. In the 90s, I was a rave promoter. So I was standing in the middle of the field with DJs and till 5 and 6 in the morning doing massive illegal dance parties, and then we became legal. So we were doing big parties with like Sasha and Underworld and Underground Resistance and all those kind of people. But I discovered Dungeons and Dragons when I was 8 years old, and I was very shy. Mum said to my brother, who was going to play this game at a friend's house, said, for God's sake, get Chris out of the house. Because I was very happy with my Atari, which shows my age. So I discovered Dungeons and Dragons. It changed my life. I was ranting about killing goblins to the kids at school the next day. They didn't understand what I was talking about. And then I discovered a game called Ogre, which is by a company called Steve Jackson Games. It's a little hex war game, the old school meaning of war games. And it's a big tank, it's a big robot tank that has to fight lots of little tanks to kill a base. And I discovered it in a knitting shop, an arts and crafts shop. One weekend, my mum had taken me to her sister's cattery, and I'm allergic to cats, so you can imagine how I was feeling, not particularly happy. And then I discovered this wall of science fiction in an art shop, and I was very happy, and I bought this game for, I think it was £3 at the time, and spent the whole weekend trying to figure out ratio combat, and I wasn't very good at maths. So that was my background, how I got into games. When I was in my teens, I was on my own in the town. There was no other gamers. I learned how to play games solo, play against myself, and would write solo games and developed it. And when I went to college, I was running the Game Society, so I got to spend all their money at Games Workshop. Brilliant. But we had a great time, and we had all sorts of great experiences. So fast forward, and then obviously in the 90s I was in the music business, doing raves and managed bands, big Belgian techno bands, and then we brought PlayStation involved into the raves, and then I started a marketing agency doing guerrilla marketing for video games, and then we started doing clothing for video games, trying to do really cool clothing. I did that for 13 years, and then I was literally bored, had been there and bought the t-shirt, as we say, and Kickstarter had come along, and I wanted to do something different. So we started our own little game world called Acton Cthulhu, which is World War II plus Cthulhu. And it was just a little project. We did a few PDFs, and then we did it on Kickstarter. We thought it was going to be a small project, and it was a big project, and it launched our company. So that's how we got started. And now we work with a lot of brands, which is obviously part of what this is about. So now we work with a lot of people. So we have a Mass Effect board game, we have Star Trek, Skyrim, Discworld, Homeworld, Kung Fu Panda, Fallout, all kinds of stuff coming up. And how on earth did we get to work with all these brands? almost impossible just to walk in the door and start working with these people. And we were right at the beginning. We were nobodies. We were. It was me and my wife. We had just had a successful Kickstarter, and we were trying to get established. And it's a long haul, and it very much is about who you know, and about building relationships. And the key thing is to gradually build our connections. And luckily, I'd been doing clothing for video games for 13 years and was very bored of it. But I had built up all these contacts with video games companies. And so there was a lot of contacts I had, so I could start talking to people. But we were this just meaningless little company that was doing tabletop games and really didn't make enough money, couldn't offer them enough money to make it worthwhile. And so we started small. We started with a brand called, anyone remember Mutant Chronicles? Kind of big Swedish RPG. It was a kind of similar to Warhammer in the 90s, and they were in 10 different languages. They had a huge collectible card game, miniatures, role-playing. Anyway, we relaunched that on Kickstarter because they didn't really want any money off. They were more than happy for us to try and relaunch it, which we did, and had another big successful Kickstarter. And this is 12 years ago. And that was the beginning. Think about this as a flight of stairs. We took the first step up the step and proved that we could work with what was once a big brand and make it recognizable again, make some money for the company. And we then used that experience to go to ITV, the British TV company, and I was a big fan of, who knows Thunderbirds? Yeah? I was a big fan of Thunderbirds, and they were just launching the new Thunderbirds TV show, which I didn't like, because of course we're a big fan of the classics. And I said, I want to make a board game out of Thunderbirds. And they said, well, it's a big new launch. I said, no, I don't want the new game. I want the old show. And they were like, you sure? It's like, yeah, it's fine. We just want to work with that because it's a classic. It's what our audience will want. And then I went to Matt Leacock, who's played Pandemic in the room. Yeah, huge designer. And he was big at the time, even 10 years ago, 12 years ago. And I said, okay, there's this TV show called Thunderbirds. He's like, I don't know it. So I was like, okay, go and watch it with your kids. He's like, all right, I'll give it a go. And I knew I'd got him because his kids would love Thunderbirds. And of course they did. And he came back, it's like, they said they'll disown me if I don't design this game. So we ended up working together. We did a big board game that's Thunderbirds, but Pandemic, and then all sorts of different variations. And that was really fun. So then I went back to the people who had the Mutant Chronicles rights and said, okay, I just did really well with Thunderbirds, and I did a really good job with Mutant Chronicles. You've got Conan. Can I do Conan next? All right, okay, we'll give it a go. You're a small company. We'll start with that. So we did Conan, and that was one of our bigger Kickstarters at the time. And again, so we took another step up the ladder. We're now 3 steps up the ladder. I love Star Trek. I watched Star Trek as a kid. I was always watching Captain Kirk getting up to no good around the galaxy, usually punching people when he shouldn't and kissing the wrong people. And I always wanted to work on Star Trek, but that was impossible. Like, I didn't know anyone involved. But now we had a little bit of a reputation. And then it turns out that a friend of mine was working with the Star Trek rights with a video game. And he said, I'll do an introduction for you. And so we talked to them, and they were like, look, we don't even have time. We're a small team now. We're not doing anything like this. So I was like, okay. So then I came back 6 months later. Hey, it's me. Can we talk about stuff? No, haven't got time. Another 6 months later, came back. I tell you what, I will pay for someone on your team to do the work to help us. And they were like, oh, okay. And then I was like, oh my God, what have I done? Because I'm going to be paying Los Angeles wages. But anyway, thankfully, they were like, don't worry, it's okay, we'll figure it out ourselves. But it took about 3 or 4 years of talking to them and coming back and just being patient and being there at the right time. We're ready ready to do it whenever you are. We'll make it very easy. We'll do bend over backwards. We'll hire someone to pre-edit, pre-approve. So we ended up hiring someone who's a New York Times best-selling author, Star Trek author, who's also a gamer, to read everything that we wrote first to make sure it was, you call it on brand, that it was very Star Trek. But luckily we had huge Star Trek fans working for us, working with it. So now we're halfway up the staircase, so you can see where this is going. I knew I'd seen Fantasy Flight Games had done a Fallout board game, and I was like, wow, you know, I know those Bethesda guys. I used to pitch them to do T-shirts, and I knew their head of PR. So I went to them and said, guys, is there any chance we could do a tabletop game? And the guy I was talking to was like, yeah, maybe. And again, another 3 years passed, occasionally going back every year to talk about it, and didn't get anywhere. And then a new guy comes in, like the people change again. And then I'm talking to again, he's like, oh, I tell you what, I can call you 5 o'clock today, and we're out for a walk in the park. And the phone rings, and it's this guy, and he's like, okay, what do you want to do? He's like, how about a board game? No, Fantasy Flight are doing that. So I just said off the top of my head, how about Fallout Warhammer? He's like, yeah, okay, that's probably fine. I was like, oh my God. So we then started frantically coming up with all these ideas, but it took another 3 years, and he changed to another person. And then we had to just keep talking and keep talking and keep gentle pressure. Hey, are you ready? Can we do the contract now? Lots of negotiation. Anyway, so 3 years later, we finally got the contract. So that was, you know, that was on the basis, well, you look, we see what we did with Conan, see what we did with Thunderbird, see what we did with Music Chronicles. So, okay, maybe these guys know what they're doing. They've got the sales, they have the ability to do a good job for our really, 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 really important brand. You've got to remember, so this is about 7 years ago, so Fallout's quite old now, but it still was a massive, massive, massive global brand, and their contracts are very, very severe. You have to be very careful working with big companies like this. So we had to really take our time to do things properly. We had to make sure that the people sculpting the miniatures knew exactly what they were doing. They were big fans of Fallout to get the look and feel right. And what else? Who else? Well, James Bond is another good example. Almost impossible to get hold of them. So they have this Eon Productions. Well, they've now sold it, I think, to Amazon. So there's Eon Productions who make the films every few years when they decide they want some more money and they've got a good script and a good idea. And there's the estate who do the novels, the young James Bond graphic novels, and you know, and the big film companies. And they never reply to emails because they just really don't want to do any licensing. And so, long story short, we were working with an Agatha Christie card game. And I said to he's the grandson of Agatha Christie, I said, do you happen to know anyone at the James Bond estate? He was like, oh yeah, I know them really well. And literally, excuse me, sorry, I'll have a drink. He said, literally overnight, and this is no joke, I got, he emailed the estate and said, I think it was, hey, Julie, Chris has got this great games company, he wants to do something with James Bond. And then she replied, oh, it can't be us, he's got to talk to Dave, the agents in America. Hey Dave, I've CC'd you, can you have a chat with Chris? And then Dave replied an hour later. This is all overnight whilst I'm asleep. And he's like, Dave said, okay, you need to speak to Emma at the agency in London. Emma, hey, can you have a meeting with Chris next week? So it's amazing what happens overnight when you're sleeping, if you get it right. But again, we had a good relationship with a company that had the relationship, and we were lucky. That stuff doesn't happen that much. And So, so then we got, long story short, we got a deal with James Bond. We did a big board game, not as successful, had a good idea. You know, these things come with also getting a great design. And, you know, how are the people selling it, the right people to sell it? We had Asmodee doing it. And one of the other interesting stories, Mass Effect was a similar thing. 3 people changed in the company. No one wanted to do it until finally the guy that's doing the job is actually a gamer. He's like, and then we met up with Eric Lang at a gaming convention. I was like, hey Eric, do you like Mass Effect? He's like, I love Mass Effect. It's like, well, I might have got the contract. It's like, how about we do a game with Asmodee and we pitch it as a mass market game? It's not a big $500 all-in game, but it's like $50. Brilliant, that sounds great, we'll sell lots. So we went back to the Mass Effect guys and was like, hey, okay, we've got this big pitch. And he's a huge Eric Lang fan, which helps. So again, it's all about who you know and build relationships with the people around you, because they will, it's the whole, you know, 6 degrees of separation. Someone knows someone who knows someone who can connect you to the right person. Build good relationships, be good to people around you, because they will help. And then the other interesting one was Discworld, which we did a huge crowdfunding for last year. And I've known Rhianna Pratchett for many years, because we were doing the video games clothing company. And so I saw her in the industry. And you know, it's always hard to talk business with friends. And so one day I saw a lawyer mentioned for the Discworld estate, and they don't do any licensing. They'd rather not do licensing than do bad licensing, because it's all about trying to be very respectful to Terry's name, to the estate. They don't want anything new creating. So I emailed this lawyer. It's a bit of the same story as James Bond. I emailed the lawyer. Same day they forwarded the email to Rob Wilkins, who was Terry's assistant, became the manager of the estate. His son saw the email. He's a massive fan of ours, it turns out, and said, Dad, you have to do this deal. So literally the next day I got an email from them. We'll come over for a cup of tea. So they came to our house with a lemon drizzle cake that was apparently one of Terry's favourite things to bring to meetings. And we sat and had a cup of tea, had a bit of cake, did a deal, and they were really happy to kind of work together to build this fantastic game that is now, it's just all gone out on PDF to the backers. And is, you know, we're building a whole series of games. There's all kinds of stuff that's going to be coming, working together, because we've built a good relationship. We've built that trust. They know that we're not going to suggest something stupid. Well, I've got a great idea. Let's put Space Marines in Ankh-Morpork. So they know that we love, honestly, really love the universe, and we respect it, and we respect Terry's legacy. That's really important with a lot of these brands, is they want to know, do you know what you're doing? Do you actually know our brand? Have you read it? Honestly, have you actually read it? Have you actually played the video game? Really, not just for like 5 minutes, but have you done 100 hours on it? So that's really obvious when you're pitching for things like this. They can see, because your pitch usually goes to the head of design for the game studio or the developers. They know their world inside out. They've seen endless money grab pitches. They've seen the kind of, it's Monopoly, but Star Wars. They've seen all of that, and they're bored of it. They want something that makes them look good. Well, the licensing team wants something that makes them money. They've got a budget to hit. They need to make a certain amount of money every quarter. The design team wants stuff that is genuine and authentic and comes from passion. So I don't work on anything that I don't like. There's nothing on here that I don't care about, because then why bother? I'm not just going to sell washing machines. Probably make more money. So it's really important that you do what you care about in your own business. So if you're coming up with game ideas, you're coming up with projects, focus on something you really honestly care about and you're passionate about, because that will be so obvious in press interviews and when you're doing your work, because it won't feel like work when you're working on a Sunday morning or a Monday night. It won't feel like work because you honestly care about it. And when you pitch for projects, and like I said, you may not get to a project like this straight away. This has taken us 10 years to put that slide together with all these brands, actually 12, 13 years now. But I just went for it at the beginning and I did my own thing because I realized I had control. And we do a lot of our own projects. Go on to the next slide. I know, that's more of the same. So this is just a good example of the kind of stuff we make if you don't know our stuff. So we did to give you an idea, so who knows Star Trek? So if you know, the Star Trek has the Borg cube, so we said, why don't we make a cube, like the Borg cube, a box, but it's got all the stuff inside. So it had a map, and it had miniatures, and dice, and counters, and a whole massive, giant-sized GM screen that I don't think anyone had done before, and all these drawers, and I think this was made in Poland. And it was 400 euros. It was insane, but it came with a number, and of course, we made 1,701 copies, so everyone had a certificate. This is our Death on the Cards little card game that's in Waterstones and Barnes & Noble. This is our first Fallout Miniatures game. This is the new Fallout Miniatures game that's in the Wargamer shop in town, I think, which is designed by the guy who made Necromunda for Warhammer. We did the Skyrim big box game that was on GameFound. This is the June Collector's Edition. This is the core book with a hand-bound leather cover and a inscribed metal facing. It's 500 euros. It's insane. And then we've done all sorts of, obviously lots of core books. And we love doing big collector's editions with all sorts of exciting stuff in the box. And my particular passion is I hate big boxes, big books full of text that are boring to read. I want to be able to play the game now. So let's move on to the next slide. Tell you a bit about oh, I think it's at the end. We'll come back to that. So yeah, I like, we've got an IP called Dreams and Machines. So we've got lots of IPs that we're creating ourselves. Because the passion is, I get to create whatever I like. And I don't have to ask anyone for permission to add big giant space marines to things. And Dreams and Machines, we wanted to do a starter set because my goal is I want a role-playing game that I can start playing now. I don't have to read anything. I don't have to say, guys, I need to read this for about half an hour, come back, text your friends, eat pizza. We can start now. So Dreams and Machines starter box has, you open the box, you start reading, and it says hand out these cards to the players, tell them to pick a character from 3 cards, and then describe this scene, roll these dice. You literally start playing this. There is no, wait a minute, I need to read this. You just start reading, you just start playing and handing out components. It's not the most perfect example of it, but it's a great introduction, and now there's lots of people now trying to do starter sets. I mean, we call it onboarding. The onboarding process is a complex one. It's, because you want to keep the box cheap, because it's the whole point. It's a starter set. It should be cheap. You shouldn't have to invest a lot of money. But at the same time, it has to be easy to play. And it has to teach the game. And the big problem in our industry, who here is a games master? Oh, very good. You are the gatekeepers. The most important people in the room, because if you don't exist, no one gets to play, let alone yourself. So, teaching people to be games masters is one of the biggest things, and encouraging other people to become games masters, because then they buy more books, and then they also go off and run a group and teach more people, and so on and so on. I will show you a few examples. This is some examples of things we do. So we've got the Star Trek books. We make all hardback books. Guess what? Who knows that all the big hardback books in the tabletop industry are made in Vilnius? There we go. There's a company called Standartu, who are based in Vilnius. They literally make most of the role-playing books in the entire world that are not made in China. Anything made outside of China is made in Vilnius by Standartu or another company called 4V Games. A lovely woman called Julia, and if you ever want to get into producing books, you can speak to them. They make very, very, very beautiful books because we don't do it in England anymore. America is way too expensive and their quality is not great. Vilnius, Lithuania, produce the best quality role-playing books in the planet. Well done. So we make a lot of books, and they told me that role-playing hardback books are the biggest print runs of any hardback books that they ever do. So that's also a great thing. I don't think there's anything else to say. We make lots of books. We're probably one of the biggest book publishers in the UK outside of like the likes of Penguin and stuff. So we also did Star Trek miniatures. So we do Fallout miniatures, Skyrim miniatures. Who recognises this lovely bald chap? Picard, Patrick Stewart. Patrick Stewart has had to actually see that model and approve it. I think the one we were basing on, he has a little bit of hair at the back, and he pushed back and said, no, he has to be bald, because he's actually quite obsessed with like being proud of being bald, which is something I'll be soon. And so we had to also show, again, he's very big here, it's actually that big, because this is a 32mm scale resin miniature. So just for context, we have to put a little Lego figure next to it. So then they were like, oh, it's that small. Because often they'd be like, why is it not that detailed? And like, because it's tiny. We have a factory in the UK that makes these. It's the second biggest factory outside of Games Workshop, which means we're the biggest factory in the world outside of Games Workshop, outside of China, that makes resin miniatures. We make 1 million sprues a year, which is about 500,000 miniatures, which are a lot of miniatures, and we don't make them for anyone else. That's just for Fallout, for Mass Effect that just launched. We've got Paranoia coming soon. Right, let's move on. Oh, here we go, Thunderbirds. So this is just an example of the Thunderbirds game. It's hard to get now. It's if you're lucky, you can find it on eBay, but it's a brilliant game for the family, saving the world, running around with your awesome machines to avoid big disasters. But we've also done Kung Fu Panda, Siege of the Citadel, Skyrim was the big recent one, which is the big kind of dudes on a map moving around, following quests. We've got Who's Played Doom, the video game. So that's we've got the big Doom board game coming on Kickstarter in about 3 weeks, and that is a arena game, player versus player. One player plays the Marine, the Doom guy, and the other player plays all the demons. They get all the monsters, all the powers, and the Doom guy gets all the guns, of course. And it's brilliant fun, it's really fast. You play a round in maybe 10-15 minutes, and then you play 3 rounds total to see who gets to win. And the more demons you kill, the more power you get, and you get to spend it and do really cool stuff. And it's gonzo, mad, frantic fun. And so that'll be a big Kickstarter. There's Doom Classic, and there's Doom Dark Ages. Has anyone played Dark Ages? The new one? It's the fantasy one. He's got a shield and a shotgun. He flies a dragon around. It's awesome. Lots of fun. So there'll be 2 versions to look at. It's supposed to be a bit of text there, but anyway. So this is our brands that we've been developing, because it's, as I said, it's way more fun to do stuff yourself. But the downside is, it's really hard to tell people about it, because if I say, who's heard about Star Trek? Who's heard about Hardware? Maybe not as many people. Okay, we've got one. So by doing a big IP, you are paying them, right? So we pay typically 10 to 15% royalty. That's for every pound or every euro we get, probably 10 to 15 cents is going to the owner of the rights, because it's their rights. So you usually pay them a load of money up front and then pay royalties from everything you earn. But this stuff, I don't have to pay anyone anything, but I have to develop it, I have to pay for all the artwork, but the approvals are all me. It's all projects we've developed. So Acting Cthulhu was our first project with World War II. Wars Cthulhu is in the same universe, and I love Romans, and I thought, well, let's have Romans and monsters. No one's really done that before. And Dreams and Machines is a post-apocalyptic universe, but hope punk. I love zombies, but I hate The Walking Dead because it's just about how horrible you can be to people every episode, rather than wouldn't it be awesome if people work together to kill all the zombies. So Dreams and Machines is a world where the machines turn on the people. There are monsters, there are big robots that are slowly coming back to life, and the people are all working together. But there's plenty of enemies. So there's lots of threat, but lots of hope, because I love hope. Hard War is a brand we bought last year from a small Polish game studio that had kind of got as far as they could, and they were burnt out, and they were like, we're done, hey, do you want to take this on? And I said, I love little robots and tanks. So we relaunched it on Kickstarter this year, and it's just gradually in the process of being produced. I think we've done all the miniatures production in our factory, and it's a big, awesome sci-fi universe, very fast-playing game if you like little tanks, like 6mm scale, epic Warhammer scale. Very fast-playing, lots of cool tanks. And then 5 parsecs from home and 5 leagues from the borderline. There's 2 other brands that, and here's what I say: if you're thinking about doing a game, just write it, put it in a crappy, Word document, save it as a PDF, and stick it up on drive-thru. Honestly, do it, because if you keep talking about it, you'll never do it. And those 2 games were that. They were a Word document saved as a PDF, but it happened to be a good game. But it looked crap, really crap. And I was like, I can make this look great. Let's work together. You've got a good audience. Let's do a new edition for retail, because it was just on drive-thru. And we reinvented both. It did gorgeous artwork, relaunched it into retail, did really, really well. And then, a bit like the guy that said, I love the company so much, I bought it. I said, look, I want to do so much more with this. How about we buy the brands, and we're going to invest a lot in it. And then Ivan, the writer, is now kind of working for us full-time on all sorts of projects. And we've got a new one, Planetfall, coming, which is where you're, I should describe what these games are. These are procedurally generating solo co-op miniature games. You can use any miniatures you like. It's either fantasy or sci-fi. You create 6 little characters, and all kinds of crazy stuff happens. You roll on tables to see what happens in town, then you go and fight a little battle, find some cool stuff, go back to town, train your guys up, and maybe one goes to the bar, you roll on the bar table, and it says you get into a fight, and then your other guy went to look for a job and has found an enemy, so clearly he got into a fight with the son of the enemy, and now that's why. See, this whole story procedurally generates, and it's basically a book of tables, but it's really, really fun, and it's sold incredibly well. And so we've got a Planetfall, is where you now land on a planet. Who knows the artist Chris Foss? Sci-fi artist? Anyway, he did lots of art in the 70s, again, shows my age. He's a big artist that did lots of like wrecked spaceships and crashed all sorts of ancient ruins and things like that, as well as like classic sort of 70s style spaceships. But imagine a world full of crashed alien spaceships and ancient ruins, and you land on it and you've got to discover the secrets of this planet. That's that book. You will just be playing it on your own, building your little colony, exploring. So that's our IPs. Can't remember what I've got next. There we go. That's where the text went. And Acting Cthulhu launched our company. We actually didn't think we were going to launch a company. We didn't have a plan to. I said to Rita, my wife, maybe this will pay, we'll do a book. It will pay for a holiday once a year. We'll keep making t-shirts. And it did so well that we were like, oh gosh, we probably should start a company if we're going to do this properly. And then we didn't have a plan to go out and get lots of other licenses, but that just came with it. So I'm not saying you shouldn't have a plan, but sometimes these things do just happen. Yeah, and that's what I've said before. With licensed IPs, we get the whole world to play in. We've got to create this stuff from the ground up, which is a lot more hard work. With Star Trek, we get all the art, we get all the design. Now, we actually create new artwork for Star Trek, but we know what it needs to look like. We know what a Klingon looks like. Well, depending on the show we pick, of course. Let's not get into that. But we know what phases look like. We know what the Enterprise looks like. We can just tell the artist, please draw the Enterprise doing this. But with our own world, we've got to come up with, like, what does a Roman centurion who's been twisted by the force of Cthulhu look like? What does a an Atlantean sword look like from this time? You have to come up with that and stick with it, because that's what it's going to look like. So there's a lot of development. And I'm going to then briefly talk about our process of creating worlds, and then we'll have a bit of questions. So when I create new IPs, a lot of people come to me with, I've got this great world, and it's unicorns, and they've got rocket launchers, and they're all pink, and that's it. And it's a role-playing game. Brilliant. Okay, but why? Why do I care? So now that can work for games, because certainly board games and card games, the premise can be, well, you're all pink unicorns with rocket launchers, and you get to jump around clouds and shoot each other, and it's an arena game, right? It writes itself. But if you want to build a universe, and I always tell people, build a universe that could one day become a feature film or a video game. Start from the ground up. So and a classic thing with role-playing games is, who am I and why do I care? What are we doing in this game? Like, okay, we're all fantasy adventurers, we'll meet in a tavern, we'll go and kill some poor family of orcs that are struggling to survive through the winter, take their crappy breadsticks that they've spent all their money making, come back and get drunk, and then do it again the next day. So classic fantasy tropes, right? But if you want to create a universe that's different, it can go horribly wrong. You can create the classic trope, like you need to do something that's different if you really want to think about stories. And also, going back to what I said before, do this several times. Your first one will be terrible, I guarantee it. Mine were awful. I'm probably on the 12th or 13th, idea, and they're still terrible, and they get better with every one I do. If you are, what I always do, and this is personally to me, I start with a story of a person, because why do we care about the Avengers, right? Who remembers the scene where Captain America goes to pick up Thor's hammer, right? And you're like, oh my god. So who remembers it's all the interactions between the characters that made the Avengers fascinating. It's not just S.H.I.E.L.D. and there's these cool guys and they've all got guns or they've got superpowers and they go off and kill the bad guys. It's, the reason we come back is because it's, they've built up this storyline, they've built up the storyline of Iron Man and Thor, all their individual characters and their families and their relationships. That's why we care about them. So that's why I like to start with people. People matter. The relationships we build up in the world matter to us. And so when you're building a world, when you're building a game world or a story, or if you're just creating a scenario for a role-playing game to play with your friends, like start with someone's dilemma, someone's drama, the character that the players or the readers or the buyers give a damn about. And sometimes, for example, in Cohorts Cthulhu, I started with this idea of, okay, there's a Roman centurion, and his best friend is his standard bearer. They're fighting the servitors of Nyarlathotep that we have in Acts of Cthulhu, and it's in front of a burning fort, and that was actually my first brief for the art, and that was it. The artist is a German artist, Bjorn Behrens, who works on Venom, and just did this amazing piece of art, and then that gave me the inspiration for okay, here's Marcus, and I started to write this story about Marcus, the centurion, who is the only one that holds the people together, but actually, wait a minute, but we need conflict, so who's the hated enemy of a Roman centurion? Of course it's a Germanic tribal chieftain, and he hates the Romans because they've killed his people, but what better drama to bring these two together when hated enemies come together? It's a bit of a classic trope as well, nothing's new. But I love the idea of what would force two hated enemies to have to work together, to have to find common ground, and who are the other people that bring them together? So then we've got my mind starts spinning, so then we've got a girl who's an Irish druid. She's been rejected by the druids because she's young and she's got powers, like get out of here, like go off to Germany and go on a journey of discovery because we don't want you here telling us what to do. and she doesn't look at you when she fights. She's got black eyeliner, of course, all cool girls in films do. And she fights like with a capoeira style, and she slices open people's throats. So then I built up all these characters. So the way the world was built by thinking about these people who were on this journey together and how they interacted with each other, and that told the story. So the story spun out of their events, how they would all meet. Same thing with Dreams and Machines. Dreams and Machines, this whole story of hope in a futuristic apocalyptic world, started with this idea that all machines would kill you when they woke up. All the robots in this world had been forced into a destructive mode by this evil AI. And so it's like, well, what if there's I imagine this girl playing in the garden, and she's like 8, and there's this old mech that's overgrown in the garden because they're everywhere, you can't get away from them. And then one day it wakes up, it doesn't kill her. And so my story about Dreams and Machines, how it started, is, well, why didn't it kill her? And where are they going? Because the people in the village are like, it's an evil robot, it's going to kill you, you can't leave it with your kid. And she's like, no, he's my friend. And so she runs away with the machine, with the family's blessing, because they're kind of archaeologists and they understand. But she runs away with the Abe, the robot, and we discover the story of this world through their eyes. So we've been doing some novelization fiction to bring that to life, and that's how that story has then helped flavour all the writers who've been working in the world. It helped underpin the flavour, like the theme. Like, this is a hopeful world. She's not scared of the machine. She's not scared of the outer world. She's going out there to discover things. So yeah, so that's the big thing with creating worlds. Is about start from your heart, start from people, start from a personal story about interactions, and let the world kind of percolate to the top around that, because I always think how people interact with the world affects it. I did have a few notes extra here, which I think we've done. Like I said, nothing is new. Don't ever imagine that you have created the ultimate gaming world that no one has ever seen before. I get those emails every week. Our 2D20 system is an amalgamation of lots of great ideas that people have used before. And hopefully it's a fun version of it, but there are also loads of other wonderful game systems out there. But the big thing is just to try and create stuff and have fun doing it. And now I'll call it a day. We can have some questions if anyone's got anything. Yeah.
What does the name Modiphius mean? What is its origin?
Good question. When I was a kid, when I was organising rave parties, I would meet up with a friend of mine, Stuart, and we would play epic 40k battles and Warhammer battles and Star Wars miniature games battles. We were crazy though, because he had this enormous collection. We're like, let's have everything. I don't want to point. Let's just rewrite the rules so we can have the entire collection on the table. Why not? But then we would sit up late into the night writing RPG stories. And we wrote this universe called Modiphius. That was a solar system built by aliens, put into place with all sorts of interesting planets. We thought one day we're going to make that as a role-playing game, and we did pitch it to Mike Pondsmith, who created Cyberpunk. This is in the mid-90s, and he was like, oh, and I think he was being nice. He's now a good friend, and I see him every year at Gen Con, and he's a wonderful guy. So, but it was one of those things you learn from along the way. But I always thought, one day, I'll use that. And of course, when I came to do Modiphius, when I came to set up the company, it's really easy to find a .com address if you use a made-up name. So I used Modiphius. It's actually a different spelling from when we did it in the original days. But again, that's the story. Anyone else?
Is it better? Okay. So thanks for presentation. And my question is connected to previous. So what's your opinion on using Gen AI in creating games like artwork, stories, and so on?
Well, we have a rule. We don't allow generative AI in artwork or writing. It gets very blurry because if I take a picture of my phone, it's using AI. Grammarly is something that a lot of writers use, effectively a spell checker. Some artists will use Blender, and they'll use the generative section that will fill in some sections. When I say to an artist, you've cut off, I need more space on the top of your artwork, more sky, they will often use the tool in Photoshop that fills in a matching pattern, which is technically AI. I do like to encourage discussion. I'm not the sort of person that will say, let's not talk about AI, it's evil. It is already around us. I think there are ways to ethically use AI tools to help. My vision is to help creative people do more in less time and have more time with their family. And I don't know what the answer is, how we can all do that, but we're at that stage where AI is developing fast and will impact everyone whether we like it or not. So it's important to have the discussion as creatives to figure out what's the right use and wrong use of it. Anyone else?
Hi, thank you for your presentation. I actually had the honor of GMing Star Trek Adventures this summer for a one-shot. And it's a really nice book and really nicely done. And I think it would be a very nice campaign. But for a one-shot, it was a bit hard for people who were not into Star Trek. So there was rules and there was lore that they had to learn in 4 hours and also have a game. So it was very challenging for me as a GM to adapt the game. So my question is, does it make business sense for these companies like Paramount, for example, to make maybe games that would be more introductory into the lore? Because I would love to popularize Star Trek via RPGs, but I can't.
Well, I know Paramount, they're launching Academy soon, which is the kind of teenage TV show. They've got another teens, I think under teens animated show coming as well. So they're doing a lot of work to reach a younger audience with Star Trek. I always think it's like kids want what Big Brother's into, so they're always interested in the more adult version. I always, with teaching people role-play games, my first gaming group was a bunch of people from a drama club. And I said, come over, bring a bottle of wine, we're going to play a storytelling game. And they started with a blank character sheet. And I just said, you're running from people chasing you, who wants to be good at running? Right, okay, write that number on your sheet. And so there are ways, I think, to engage people in a one-shot. Obviously, the problem with Star Trek, well, Star Wars is even easier because everyone knows what stormtroopers look like, or rebel troopers, or star destroyers. And to a certain extent, I think Star Trek is I always describe Star Trek is your friend next door that you hang out with all the time, and Star Wars is your uncle that comes once a year with this big bag of presents. It's really awesome, and then goes away. So Star Trek's always there. Saying that, Star Wars now has all the shows as well. So, I mean, and it's down to us to make those products that help introduce the shows better. And like I said, part of what we're trying to do is make products that are more easy to get across the world. So with the Dreams and Machines box set, we had lots of cards with what things look like. So because when you're trying to convince people that Dreams and Machines is a more awesome world to play than, say, Star Wars, you've got to show them what it is. So you find this gun, this is what it looks like. They don't know what it looks like. And this is part of the problem with creating new games is it's so easy for people to play Star Trek or Star Wars because it's so easy to explain about the world. But like you said, it's still hard to tell people about Star Trek. So I would say, handouts, pictures that you can print off from the book is a good starting point. And also reducing the barrier of entry of rules is like, you How are we for time? I think we're running out of time. Any last question?
Just a silly personal question. What's your favorite game to play from the ones you created or published?
Oh, good question. Well, I'm always designing new games. I'm doing a pirate game at the moment, a modern war game. I'm really into my war games at the moment. I'm working on the hard war solo rules. I'm really obsessed with making games that are more fun to lose. So for me, let's say my little army has got to defend the bridge against the orc horde, but there's, over here, if I go to the woods, I might find the sword of my father, and if I find the sword of my father, I found out who he was. That's more interesting. And then I'd rather lose the battle and find out who my father was. Those are the games I want to make, where it's not about the points, it's not about the objective, it's about the story that you tell. All right, I think that's it. Thanks very much.